Hi everyone, welcome to Quirky Cooking Chats. I'm Jo Whitten, your host, and I'm so glad you could join me today on this lovely Friday. Sunshine out the window, but not so sunny down south for our friends in the flooded areas. I just want to send out lots of love to you guys. I know there's a lot of people really struggling with loss of homes and all sorts of difficulties at the moment. So I just wanted to mention that there is a GoFundMe to help raise money to make food and supply things that are needed for these people who've lost homes and livelihoods through the floods. You will find the link below. This is a trusted GoFundMe that is run by friends of mine down in the Mullumbimby Lismore area. They are chefs and restaurant owners who are making meals and finding food donations and other donations for people in need at this time. So if you are able to help, even with a couple of dollars, please click on the link below and have a look. All the details are there. All right, so we'll continue on to the podcast now. This podcast is going to be helpful, I think, for a lot of people, especially if you have some symptoms of endometriosis but are not really sure where to go from here, not sure if you do have endometriosis or how to deal with it if you have it, you need some support maybe, or you just want to learn more about it. It's really important for us to be aware of this disease because it is very, very prevalent in our society and people don't know about it. I didn't really know much about endometriosis up until a couple of years ago when a lady I work with told me about her experiences with endometriosis, and a young friend also who's really struggling with it. And it made me start to research how a healthy diet, a low inflammatory diet can be of benefit to people with endometriosis. So even though we didn't get into the diet so much in this podcast, I've shared some links below for you where Elise Comerford, the nutritionist that I work with, has done some videos about how to deal with the root cause, which is inflammation, how to really reduce the inflammation by working on your gut health, and also helping to improve the health of your liver and your digestion so that your body has a better balance with hormones and detox as well. All of these things help with reducing inflammation, which is going to help reduce symptoms. So if you have a look at the links below, you'll see those videos. In this podcast, Donna and I mostly talk about what it is, how to get the help you need if you have endometriosis, what the red flags are, the symptoms, the importance of support and awareness in our society and in our families, and how to support people, those people around you that are struggling with this very painful disease. Thank you so much, and I hope you get a lot out of this podcast. Scroll down to the links below if you would like to know more. Hi, Donna. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to talk all about endometriosis because it is Endometriosis Awareness Month. So could you tell us a little bit about your story before we begin?
Thanks for having me on your show, Jo. My name's Donna Ciccia. I'm a co-founder and director of Endometriosis Australia, a not-for-profit organisation that raises awareness and helps educate people around all the beings of endometriosis, all the things that it affects in someone's life, and also raising awareness so people understand what it is. We also raise funds for endometriosis research. So it's really important because there is very, very limited funding for endometriosis research.
I think a lot of people don't really know what endometriosis is. I didn't up to probably a year or two ago. I sort of knew it was something to do with a bit of like painful periods or something, but that's about all I knew. So could you give us an explanation of what it actually is?
Sure. Endometriosis is where cells similar to the lining of the uterus, but they're a little bit different, and they're found outside of the uterus. So they're found outside your womb and it can be found anywhere in the body. So it can be attached to your fallopian tubes, your ovaries, your bowel, bladder, the peritoneal cavity, and also it can be found as far away as the lungs, the brain, the skin. So it's not just a painful period. It's often put into a nice little neat box, but it is so much more. And we like to say it's a systemic inflammatory disease. So it affects all parts of your life, but it also can affect all part of your body as well.
Yeah, that's what I found amazing when I started researching like this in the past year or so, that it's not just affecting like ovaries and uterus, that it can go all through your body and even your skin, you say.
Yeah, people have had it in some weird and wonderful places, and it's pretty much been found everywhere in the body. So for myself, this is probably why I started Endometriosis.
Yeah, we would love to hear your story. Thank you.
I had really painful periods when I was at school, and it was, just told to you that it's just part of being a woman, it's just a part of life, and you just need to harden up and get over it and stop being a hypochondriac. And I then didn't get diagnosed. So I remember, back to that being 16 when my first symptoms came on. And then I was not diagnosed till I was 31.
Wow.
So the delay in diagnosis is quite staggering. But since we've started endometriosis, so since the last 10 years, the delay in diagnosis of, on average, 7 to 12 years is actually shortened down to 6.5. And good. So, which is an awesome achievement, but boy, we still got a long way to go. Yeah. So it does make a difference. And I think also for patients, it makes them feel validated. So they don't feel like they're being, because they're often referred to a psychologist.
Yes.
And so this way that's not happening. They feel validated. People can actually understand that there is something physically going on with their body. So I think I hit my 30s. I was studying natural medicine at the time, and I think after my first surgery, I think I showed, and it was in, this is how old I am, the VHS days. So I had it recorded, and I think I showed everyone at my college what it looks like on the inside.
Oh, wow.
So I was like show and tell girl. But it was a part of educating, and I think that's probably where I started educating people about and raising awareness about endometriosis, because most people dismissed you and didn't understand. And so later on in 2012, a group of like-minded people all came together and we formed Endometriosis Australia. So that was the start of the journey. So we're 10 years old this year.
Oh, congratulations. Well done on a good job. When you were growing up, so when you started to have those really painful periods and started to think something maybe wasn't right, what were you told to do about it back then?
Nothing.
Oh.
Absolutely nothing. It was, your family didn't believe you either. So I think that it's a whole different experience for patients now, because often we find that parents are championing their kids because they have been through it themselves. So we know that there's a genetic element to endometriosis, so it can be passed down through the family. We haven't quite identified, doesn't seem to be one gene, it seems to be a cluster and not the same. So there's a lot, again, we need more funding for research to find out what causes endometriosis and what we can do to have better treatments for it or management for patients. But yeah, obviously for years I didn't do anything, didn't know to do anything. I thought it was normal. I thought that's what it was supposed to be like.
Did you have days where you just had to stay home in bed, or?
I do remember, and this is because I grew up in Cairns. So
did I. We've just been having a chat before the podcast and we found out we're from the same hood.
Yeah, we're from the same hood. And I remember, I went to Cairns High and in year 11 and 12, and I remember having to ride my bike to my grandmother's place in West Court area because I was so sick and so painful, but I still had to ride a bike.
Oh,
so,
my goodness.
I know. So the things you do when you just need to, you just need help. And, so whilst it's an awful experience, I think that it's got better for kids coming through now. There's a lot more awareness. It's not perfect by any means. We've still got so far to go. But, it's a start.
And there's more support thanks to you guys. And
well, I hope so.
The awareness.
I hope there's more support and understanding.
I've met a couple of people with endometriosis that I know of, and it amazes me what they go through and what they live with every day and how they keep going. Like, I guess you do what you got to do, but like how do you support people who are living with endometriosis to cope with that everyday stress of the pain and the...
So I think the best way is to empower people with knowledge. That's my thoughts. I think if we have education and we have knowledge, then we can be, I like to say we're the CEOs of our healthcare. So we can empower people with that knowledge to understand what's happening, how they can look at different ways, because there is no one size fits all treatment or management for patients with endometriosis. And it is often looking around for trying different therapies and modalities to find what works for you. So if you find something that works for you, stick with it. Don't, it doesn't have to fit with what everyone else is telling you. If it works, keep doing it.
Yeah. Can you tell us how many people in Australia sort of have, or do you have like numbers of how many are diagnosed?
Yeah, we do now. There was some recent research came out. Before that, we were relying on averages from overseas, and research came out in 2020 that it's actually now 1 in 9. We used to think it was 1 in 10.
1 in 9.
1 in 9. So
I had no idea that it was that high.
So 1 in 9 women and those that are assigned female at birth have endometriosis or diagnosed with endometriosis by the time they're 44. And so a lot of that's to do with that delay in diagnosis as well, but 1 in 9. So it can start as young as teenagers. So it can start from the time of your first period, or even you can have an inkling before your first period. So it starts, and it's a long time to live with endometriosis. If you think you're living in this it's a chronic condition that goes for your whole, lifetime, Nellie. So you have to come up with some sort of plan. And some people have super, super severe disease and no symptoms. Or they can have very mild disease and severe symptoms. So there is so many anomalies with this disease, and we're still trying to find out, are there subsets of disease within the umbrella endometriosis? We don't know that either. Like, there's different types of breast cancer and different types of ovarian cancer. Is there different types of endometriosis?
Well, if it's spreading to different parts of the body, then I guess it's going to show up differently for different people.
Yeah, symptoms present differently for different people. So a little bit back to my story. I originally was diagnosed with stage 3 endometriosis, and whilst I did have pain, but my pain was not really equivalent to the extent of my disease, and it had progressed later on in life, and I was diagnosed with stage 4, and I had to have a liver resection because I had endometriosis in my liver.
What does that mean exactly?
So there was lesions of endometriosis in the liver, and the upside of that is that the liver regrows. So it's a lovely organ. So you can take a lobe off, and you can still, but it is still like nearly like a liver transplant.
Right.
Idea, you have those really skilled surgeons that come in to do those resectioning of your liver. I've also been diagnosed with endometriosis in the diaphragm. So that's right up underneath your lungs. It's a very fine muscle, I think it is termed as, but it is, so I've got endometriosis in the diaphragm with adhesions up to the pericardium, which is the heart, the lining around the heart.
Wow.
So those symptoms present completely different to period pain.
Yeah.
So it is all about listening to your body and being able to note down your symptoms. Your disease is unique to you, and find the right people around you, practitioners, carers that understand what's the best treatment and management course for you.
One thing I heard recommended was if you've got, period pain and it's not bearable and you have to take medication, then you need to get that checked because that's not normal. And to take a diary and note down, all your symptoms over a, period of time so that you can see when you're feeling that pain and how bad it is, so you can take that to your doctor. Is that what you would recommend?
Yeah, I think, charting your experience is not a bad thing. And there's great apps, so you don't have to go back to old school paper and pen. I'd probably go old school, but, there are apps. And
my daughter's use an app.
Yeah, and there's a new one from overseas coming out, being launched, and it'll also, so if you go to, like, say, your acupuncturist, it'll remind you that you did that and it helped last time. So,
wow, what's this app called?
Well, I'm not going to advertise.
Oh, you're not supposed to say. Okay.
No, I probably won't advertise.
Have a look, guys.
Yeah, have a look. But if there are different ones out there. This one's an overseas one, and they are looking at it from a research perspective as well. So it's just those friendly reminders of what worked last time, so you can plot it in. So think about those type of things, and think about what medications, or whether it's other sorts of supplements that you might be taking, or is there a trigger in the food that you're eating?
Exactly, that's what I was thinking.
Is setting it off for you. And because a lot of people with endometriosis have bowel symptoms, so they might have bloating, and sometimes it is so severe. And if you've got diaphragmatic endometriosis like I do, any sort of bowel bloating gives you severe chest pain. So you need to think about visiting different people. Like, it might be a naturopath, it might be a nutritionist, it might be a dietitian. We've got some research in FODMAPs, in low FODMAP diet, but there is limited research. Yeah. So, again, what works for you, keep going.
So endometriosis is an inflammatory disease.
Yeah.
So basically the root cause being inflammation, you need to be doing what you can to reduce inflammation. So you can, we talk about this a lot in the podcast about reducing inflammation with diet and lifestyle. Is there anything you personally have found really helpful for reducing inflammation?
Again, don't want to advertise, but I do all the things. I see an osteopath, I have acupuncture, I, take different sort of herbs and medicines when I need to, because that's, my background is also in complementary medicine. So I have tried all different things and I've sort of found my few that work. Like, I love having, as much as it's painful, a massage, and it's a particular myofascial release massage. So it's really deep, hurts like anything, but it does relax the muscles down, because you tend to find that you have a lot of muscle spasms and things like that. So
you're tensed up with the pain?
The body remembers those. It's like a natural reflex in the body to protect itself. So you have to retrain it often, and that's also pre and post surgery. Don't forget to see your pelvic physio. Don't forget to do all of these things to help re-educate your body along the way. It's not just I'm going to have surgery and it'll all be fixed. There is no such thing.
If only.
If only. Multidisciplinary care is really important. And, if you find anti-inflammatory diet works for you, knock your socks off. Go for it.
I'll just see if I've got any more questions here. I think what I was wondering, if there's people out there listening that say, well, I have period pain, doesn't everybody? Is there some more specific red flags that you would say go and get checked?
Yeah, look, I would think about if you have, cyclic pain that stops you from doing something. So you can't go to school, you can't play sport, you can't go out with your friends. And we've even got research to support the fact that most people that live with endometriosis actually lose their friends first, because they're seen as unreliable, so they don't turn up to social events.
Okay.
So, if you're a friend of someone with endometriosis, hang in there. They're really not ditching you. They just can't actually physically make it. So there would also be painful bowel motions, painful urination, painful sex is another one, and fatigue. Fatigue is one that is often forgotten about. So all of those things combined, and they could be associated with so many other disorders or diseases. So it is really important to check in with your GP and get a referral to see someone that specialises in endometriosis, a gynecologist that specialises in it. We've got better ultrasound technology now that can look at different ways that they have to be specially trained sonographers or technicians that know how to look for it, but that can also give you a hint of what's going on inside. And back to the point of being empathetic and understanding, I often tell a story about what can you do to support someone with endometriosis. So I often tell a story about if you're walking down the street and someone walked up to you and said, I've got to go and have a bowel resection because I've got bowel cancer. The first thing someone says to you is, oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear that. What can I do to help? If you say, I'm going to have a bowel resection because I've got endometriosis, the first thing someone says is, what's endometriosis?
So true.
So we can be empowered to, as carers, friends, family, to understand what endometriosis is. And if we all become aware, then we can help those that need that helping hand every now and then.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, even if you have someone in the family or a friend who suffers from period pain, like you said, when you were young, you really didn't get the support from family and friends because they were just like, oh, that's just a girl thing and too bad, everybody has it. But it's so much more. And if, like, I've got teenage girls, knowing that if something like that is going on, let's look into it, help them keep a diary. I'm thinking of it as a mother, thinking, how can I help my girls to be aware, to look after their bodies? So yeah, it's
and I'm a mum of a son, and I'm making him aware so that he is a good support person. So I think that we all have a role to play, and I think that everyone should be aware of what it is.
Definitely.
And also, if we can get the young ones that are living with this nightmare that is endo, and it often is quite if you imagine you having your first period, it wasn't fun having the first period the first time around, let alone if it was extremely painful. And if that's what you think is a normal period, that needs to be that myth needs to be dismissed. Period pain should be uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be something that puts your life on hold.
Exactly.
So you can be uncomfortable and you can have mild cramping or something, but it shouldn't, and there are other disorders to look into, but for endometriosis, it is something that is affecting so many people, 830,000 women and those that identify as gender diverse in Australia. So that is a massive amount of people that need our support to reach their full potential.
Yeah.
So I'm still passionate about it 10 years down the track.
Good. We need people like you. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for coming on the show and explaining more about endometriosis. If anyone has questions about what you do and how they can get some support, how can they contact you guys?
Look, I think the best way is to head to the Endometriosis Australia website. So it's endometriosisaustralia.org, and jump online, have a look at, there is so many free webinars, everything, on there.
You have a podcast?
We do have a brilliant podcast. So Ellie Angel interviews patients. She interviews clinicians and stakeholders around the country about endometriosis. So it's a really good one to get yourself up to speed about what endo is. And there is also online a closed group too. So parents, carers and patients can jump into that, and the links are on the website. So
that's really helpful. I think sometimes you just need someone to talk through these things with, and the support groups are so important.
Yeah, and knowing you're not alone, because that has been, I think, was my biggest thing. Is I went to school with someone for 2 years, and then we met up at a school reunion 30 years later, and she told me she had endo, and I had no idea. We were in class every day together. We just never talked about it, and she missed a lot of school, not just a little bit, but she was always never there. Now I know why she was never there.
Right.
So, if you're having to miss school, that is definitely a red flag. And I'm glad things have changed, but I'm now doing my master's in research because I want to find out more and help more people that live with endo every day.
Oh, that's great. I will put the links below for those of you who are listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube. Scroll down, check the links, and have a look at the website, and maybe have a look at the podcast and have a listen to some of those great stories and the help that you'll get there. Thank you so much, Donna, for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.